Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pundit. We have Jacob the Laughaholic Christner. Okay, I don't know what he's laughing about, but if he wants to laugh at me, I'm used to it anyways.
So I was hearing the hiss of the soda being poured, and then I hear him finishing up.
All right, well, I'm glad that that's a topic about soda being poured. I like curveballs in this situation, but
no problem.
At least you're jovial and you're ready to rock and roll tonight, Mr. Pundit himself. Yep. On top of him is George Eichhorn. Welcome back, George.
Good to be on. Thank you, guys. Nice being back on.
And we have the sniper, Denzel Snipe.
Hey, live from the sniper's nest. What's going on?
Well, we're at it again. So, all right. Well, before I turn it over to you, Denzel, let me just let everybody know that Pundit's Pundit is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit's Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Just comment in the chat room is one way to do it, or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes, and she's actually producing the show. And I have a new book out called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It's pretty much old school media versus new school media. It can be purchased on Kindle and Amazon. With that said, I'm going to turn over the mic to Denzel Snipes. We have a few good topics. Pundit's Point. Go ahead, Denzel, take over.
All right. And also hit that like and subscribe button on Sideline Sports Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. Got a lot of great material all week long. You'll catch some of the folks here on the panel with us, so make sure you're tuning in. So tonight, first let me address the last week. We had a topic regarding NFL analyst and former NFL quarterback David Carr's pseudo-controversial comments regarding Jalenhurts. And so it actually spawned, and went off the rails a little bit, but in a great way. It spawned a conversation about basically, the credibility of journalism and how to make it great and everything. We even also had another topic about this just a few weeks back, and I had brought up Brian Williams' line about being at a helicopter crash and everything. And so every now and again, and being the journalists and analysts that we are, we tend to bring up something like this, especially if there's a controversial statement that happened or an incident involving a journalist or anything like that, So this is basically part 2 from last week's episode, or last week's topic rather, and that is in making journalism great again. And so, and I don't know if you heard Scott, but I when you walked away backstage, I talked with George and Jacob, and basically what I'm going to do is I thought of 3 questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the panel, and of course, unfiltered, unbiased, total transparency. Okay. And so the first question I do want to ask is, because we talk about the danrathers and the waltercroncites of yesteryear and everything like that, Barbara Walters, you name it. Some of the people that I've grown up on, Jacob's grown up on, George has grown up on and worked with, and same with Scott as well. And then it seems like nowadays, like it's changed. It's heavily changed. And so I'm going to start off with Jacob, and we'll go counterclockwise here. And, in noticing that the scope has changed, as far as journalism goes, why has the scope changed?
Well, someone made a good point. I think it was Bill Martin made a good point. He used to be the loss leader for the networks when it was like 3 networks. Used to be and then there was one big point about something. 60 Minutes got number 1. 60 Minutes got number 1. Then that was the first news network that got number 1. So all of a sudden, now the networks are like, now we got to make everything number 1. We got to make a controversial big pop. It's kind of like if Steve Harvey's got to have a news network. You know what I'm saying? Everything's got to pop. It's got to have big colors. It's got to have everything. Everything's got to be controversial instead of getting facts. And that's one of the things that happened with that is what another big deal also is just it's people. People have changed. It was before COVID. Everything has got to be, and I call it the fantasy football. Everything has to be the great. You can't have yourself, and I'm going to talk about this in a pundit point tonight. You can't have yourself just a guy that wins ball games. It's got to be flashier, or they boo you out, and they'll go for the flashier loser. It's not just the players. It's not just sports fans. I mean, it's everybody. You got to, policy wonks and politics can't make it anymore. It's got to be the, and this is my only thing I'm saying with it. It's got to be the celebrity. It's got to be the game show host. You get my point?
Right.
It's got to be that deal to be able to get their head. It's got to be the guy who gets out there. The policy wonk doesn't stand a chance.
Okay, that's fair. Very fair enough. So let's swing it over to George here. And you spent many years in the business, and so you've seen different stages, different phases of journalism. So, in your opinion, why has the scope changed?
Well, I think, Denzel, and guys, I think one of the main reasons is, and you pointed it out, that evening news used to be a loss leader. What the stations do now is totally different than what they used to do, okay? The magazine style format, like you mentioned, Jacob, 60 Minutes, or like we used to see in the 2020 or Nightline with Ted Koppel, those were outstanding and have been outstanding. 60 Minutes obviously still around. Programs. And, even that Dateline that NBC does, looking at all these mysterious, unfortunately, most of them are crime or heinous crimes that are committed. But on the other hand, the local news, they want something snazzy. They want something short, crisp, to the point. They only give you so many seconds or maybe a minute and a half or something on most of their stories, unless it's a ratings period, and then they'll go into one little, probably bigger or longer story, maybe two, on an evening newscast. So I think the pressure came in regarding the ratings and also regarding the interest of the people out there. With such a fast pace, with getting news so quickly from CNN or social media or Fox News or whatever, people want it. They want it quickly. And what's that done is it's created a vacuum, because people that are out there and do have a story to tell and would like to tell it can't do it half the time, because the network, whether it's a local or national, wants just a soundbite, as they call it. They want it quickly. They don't want you to go into detail, again, unless it suits their interest, like I said, during a ratings or a sweep period, or if you're doing something for a high caliber, like a 2020 or a 60 Minutes. So I know it's a convoluted answer to your question, Dens, but it's a whole new animal out there. And, they're trying to make money, and they're trying to be flashy with all this new stuff. And, it's just not the same as it used to be.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. It's like nowadays, and you mentioned how nowadays they want it quick and to the point. Everything's so go nowadays. And that used to be the case for, say, like back in the day, like a New York or an LA or something like that. But now it seems like, or Chicago, and now it seems just like kind of everywhere, right? Anywhere but a rural area. So last thing I want to round it out with Scott, as far as this question goes. Why do you think that the scope has changed?
Well, let me refer to an example I saw this week. We all know about the Ohtani, where he lines up in LA, but one of my former colleagues in Georgia, jonpaulmorosi, reported that he was going to go to Toronto, and he was on his way to Toronto, and that was hot. But as it turns out, he ended up staying in LA. Now, to jonpaulmorosi's credit, okay, he apologized to his fans on Twitter for making that mistake, and I forgive him because I know the person is credibility. But the reality is this, okay? It's trying to get information out first without having all your facts in place, aka Jacob Frankreynolds, okay? How many times have I talked about that? Probably a lot. Frankreynolds is good enough because he got my book, okay? But I give jonpaulmorosi credit for owning it. He says, and he apologized very sincerely. That's not what I'm about. Please forget. I do, because it happens to the best of us. Sometimes anxiety levels reach a point where you're excited and you want to get it out there first, but then you're forced to backtrack. But this whole industry has changed anyways because of the emergence of social media. Think about it, okay? When Babe Ruth was playing ball way back before any of us were born, even you, Eichhorn, okay? You know, if you had social media and he was drinking beer, I'll tell you, Iceland, Antarctica, and Russia, or wherever would know about Babe Ruth's beer belly. Okay, but nowadays you didn't have it. So, social media, all the other things that we talked about time and time again. So, while we sometimes compromise the integrity of the media, let's remember the media is where you're getting your news, no matter what level it changes.
No matter what.
No matter what. So whether you're in 2024 or whether you're in 1924 or 1954 or 2054, needless to say, in 2054 hits, I'll be residing permanently in Milwaukee at a cemetery not too far away.
You're still going to be around.
Oh, wow. I'm about 2054. Well, let's just keep this. I can only imagine what this industry is going to look like. That I don't even want to know. But let's keep everything in perspective. Nowadays, it's all about clicks. I would rather sacrifice a few clicks to do it right. That's just me. But it happens to the best of us, and that's the only reason. Excuse me. I'm mentioning jonpaulmorosi because George and I know him. He's a great guy. Yes. He's a heck of a writer.
Yes, he is.
No, absolutely. And man, I'm getting some. Everybody's getting some really fulfilling answers here. So actually, for time purposes, I'll only ask one more question, and we'll go around the panel once again. So starting with Jacob, because we've seen it to where people just say anything, even in an official capacity, even if they know it's wrong, but it still gets like positive reacts and whatnot. So I'm going to ask you, why do unethical journalists and why does unethical journalism at times get positive reactions?
The power of number one, but I'll explain this. I'm going to use this because I'm going to use a fantasy football thing on this one, a reference. Mm-hmm. I have two ways of saying with fantasy football. I say, number one, there's the used car salesman, the ones that just want the big stacks right now. They want to look at, the stars and everything. Then there's the ones that are like, they're the day traders. They're the wait. They're waiting for the next. They're waiting for the next shot. It's like it's small wins or small losses until they hit shot. And that's what I think for journalism is. It's the fact that it's like there are so many looking for the used car salesman, the stack, the everything like that. It's not the biggest, but it's there. And I have a belief that if you're completely honest, but there's not enough with the guts to try this. But if you have the guts to try it, you give off good things. 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you're going to get all the big scoops. Like you talk about jonpaulmorosi. Like let's just say that would have worked out or whatever. You're honest. You're everything. You're going to get the scoops. You're going to get that. You're the first one. And I mean, Adam Schefter gets some of the big scoops, but he did wait. He did wait. But it's like I get the feeling. I don't think there's enough journalists with the guts to wait. They're afraid someone's going to get first. And there's so many that are wrong. I just get that feeling. The ones that are not afraid to be last, quote unquote, for 5 years will be first the rest of their lives because they're the honest ones, and they're the ones that get the call from the one that wants them to know it.
Yeah. No, not totally agree. And so I'll swing it on over to George, and I know you've seen your share of incidents. So why is it even before social media? Why is it that unethical journalists and unethical journalism sometimes get positive reactions?
Well, they're trying to make a name for themselves. Obviously, like Scott said earlier, they're not waiting until they got all the facts for a good story or a true story. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that journalists take shortcuts and they want the glamour. They want the headlines and they don't even care. It's sad to say they don't even care if they're right. Now, that's not true when it comes to some of their bosses, the sports editor, the news director, the program director, the program manager, whatever. I still believe in them for the most part. That they want a true story. But again, like you said, Jacob, they want to be first. They want to go out there. They want it to be out there before anybody else. And sometimes they're pressured to do that. But you shouldn't ever, ever be unethical. But unfortunately, like you said, it's happening. And it's not right because we really, really have to present the public with the right story, with the truth and go from there. But especially when they're covering things like politics and stuff. There's so many, half truths and all this stuff going on, and hearsay and all this junk, but it's happening in sports too. We see it in sports where stuff is being said and it's not checked. It's not being verified. And that's why I think some of the leagues and some of the teams now, and Scott, this, there's been such a change with our availability to talk to the athletes. I mean, they're not putting them out in front of us media like they used to. I mean, okay, yeah, if your name is, well, the old days, Brian Gumbel, Greg Gumbel, I'm thinking about, our friend Dick Enberg and people like Bob Costas. Yeah, they arrange interviews with those big shots. But on a local level, when we're trying to do a story, a lot of it now is they're clamping down. And I think one of the reasons is because some of the writers and broadcasters, unfortunately, are a little bit unethical. And the teams and the leagues are trying to control some of that. Again, a long-winded answer, but I can see the change. I really do. And I'm not a fan anytime of unethical stuff on the journalism side.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that one. And last but not least, Mr. Scott, your thoughts on this. Why do you think unethical journalism and journalists sometimes get positive reactions?
Well, here's the deal, George. Since you feel that your answer was long-winded, I'm going to give you the short version so that we can keep time under control. I will go on record right now that I will retire when my instincts don't allow me to do the job that I'm able to do dealing with these PR people, and I don't have the trust of the people I deal with. I don't need this business that bad if I have to violate the two utmost principles that you need to survive in this business: instincts and trust. And why do you think a lot of guys are retiring early? Because they realize what the access points are now versus how they used to be. Baseball, you're allowed to go in there 3 hours before. Now you're lucky to get an hour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just an example. So I'll say it one last time, and then we go on the next topic, okay? When my instincts tell me that other PR people are not allowing me to do my job, and I have to have words with them, and I don't have the trust of the people that I'm working with, I'm retiring, period. You heard it on this network tonight.
No, absolutely. And on that note, we're going to go on to our second topic, and that is Shohei Ohtani's newest contract. He is the newest Los Angeles Dodger. He says he's going to stay in Southern California, in the same city, but just go across town a bit. So he recently signed a 10-year, $700 million, now a record, biggest contract in North American professional sports. 10-year, $7 million contract. The thing is he deferred 95% of his salary until retirement. And basically, he's only going to earn somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million per year. This is reminiscent of the Bobby Bonilla contract, where he signed $1.2 million for 25 years, beginning on 1 July 2011, and that's paying him to the day of 1 July of 2035. And Jake, me and you have talked about this. This most definitely was a win for Shohei Ohtani. But is this a win or a loss for the Dodgers?
Truthfully, it's kind of a loss in a way for the Dodgers, just because they're going to be that deferred contract's going to be. There's no way they can trade him off if he wants to go. No one's going to take that deferred payment. They're not going to want to take it. They're not going to be responsible for it. And if they do get rid of him, they're going to be responsible. They are going to be responsible. Right. I mean, you've got the ones that would get that. You literally have to get him money out of your cap the rest of your days, until 2043. And it's smart. It's smart. And I brought this up last night. It's like on the Sports Exchange. I said, I like hearing these ideas. I know Caleb Williams is not going to get what he wants, what he was talking about, but I like the idea of a young man thinking business and getting these ideas, because, and you heard me say that, Denzel. It's like, I like the idea with these, and these are there because there's too many that still go broke. They want the cash right now. Cash doesn't. You got to remember this. In economics, cash doesn't go the same way. That they were talking about the other day. Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
What's going on, Ralph?
It's like, no, they talked about every single time around, like the Home Alone, it was $18. It was $18 for what he $18.49 or something for what the Kevin had to give out for what he wanted, and now it's that same amount with $72. $72. So what he wants, what Ohtani wants, is he wants to do what Jay Leno did. Jay Leno put all his stacked all of his Tonight Show money away and just lived off of his other money. Yep. He's now retired with up to $250 million, plus he's still out on the road.
That's nuts.
So that's the way to do it. You got to stack your money away. And hopefully we see more with that thought process so we have less broke.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny. You know, you got to think about the athlete, you know, because there's many ways around it also, because you could put your contract money away and just live off your sign-on bonus. You know, you can, let's see, depending upon what you get paid, like per year, every other year you could just stash that money away and just live by your means, whichever. I mean, $2.5 million is still a lot of money, you know, to us common folk. But, you know, yeah, it's however you want to do it. But this most definitely was smart. But I want to switch it over to George here and get your thoughts about this contract. Ohtani, definitely a win for him. What about the Dodgers, though?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's no question about it. I mean, he planned this out, obviously, with his financial team and his agent and the advisors. But I cannot foresee any kind of good news out of the Dodgers organization when it comes time to pay this bill. I mean, you know, they're going to be in such amount of hurt. But again, I mean, I know they're one of the richest franchises, if not the, you know, around nowadays. The Yankees and them probably the two biggest spenders. But that being said, I saw what happened in Detroit, and we're comparing apples and oranges, I know. But I mean, the Miguel Cabrera contract and how that was out for so long. Victor Martinez, the same thing. He couldn't even hardly drive in any runs his last year or two with the Tigers, and it sucked the life out of their budget and their ability to get more players. And that's what I'm getting at here. The Dodgers have to know that this financial albatross, if you will, is going to be around, and it's going to be a long time. But it has to be paid. And I like what you said too, Denzel. You know, you're not going to be able to unload that kind of contract. You know, a team, if they're going to try to trade him, God forbid if he gets hurt seriously again. But I mean, it's a stroke of genius for him and his financial team. But it is going to hurt the Dodgers in the long run, I predict. And you know, he's doing the best he can from an athletic and a personal perspective. But the team itself is going to have some issues on the back end. No question about it in my mind.
One quick question. How long before we see somebody one day with a 100% deferred, living off of their original NIL and their other stuff, whether they make money on?
Well, you know, it's funny how you say that. I was about to get to that. So you want to?
There you go. Great minds think alike.
Before I speak to Scott, I was gonna say, you know, in alluding to what you were talking about, George, and you, Jacob, is and I actually brought this up in a comment during the Sports Exchange one time. And I was like, you know what? Long gone are the days where you buy your way to a title, like the Yankees used to do. You know what I mean? Those days are gone. They have to learn at some point that it's going to be about homegrown baseball. You know, either you can get an acquisition from another team. That's fine. You know, I'm not saying pay $700 million, you know, but also go to your farm system. Let those guys gel together, you know, but now I'm going to go to Scott because I know he's been chomping at the bit from what he said just now. Go ahead and take it away.
Well, bear in mind, okay, I'll answer your question in a moment, Jacob. We're talking Bobby Bonilla, one of the smartest people on the planet, right? Well, Shohei Ohtani may have topped Bobby Bo. But here's what you have to understand long-term and short-term. The Dodgers are able to get better players because he's deferring his money so they can add players.
True.
Yeah. That's the one thing that we have to understand. Two, can he live off that money? Of course. He got endorsements, for crying out loud. That's always going to make an impact. So, and don't forget the money that he earned with the Angels and the endorsements that he's had before. So The Dodgers of all organizations are equipped to handle this in a big way. Mentioned last night on the Sports Exchange, I mentioned that their general manager and their owner, if they're no longer in their roles, he can opt out of this thing as well. So, you know, there is an opt out, but obviously I don't see either of those happening because of risk and reward. Now, to Jacob's question, okay, I do believe down the road that this is a trend in Major League Baseball as well as sports. How many times have you heard the fact that athletes are going broke and bankrupt? Every now and then you run across one that's pretty smart, okay, and knows what he's doing. I'll give you an excellent example of a guy who's a personal friend of mine that I've had on our show by the name of Barry Foote, former Yankees catcher. Well, let me tell you, Barry, when he got out of baseball, became an entrepreneur in the import-export business, and he's doing great. The only thing I need to do is, when I get to North Carolina, our schedules have to mix, but I've worked with him forever. So the reality is 100% sure. What about all these shoe deals that these guys are getting out of college where even if they hold out, they can wait, right? Think about it until they get the contract that they feel they're worth at the beginning or later on. So there's a lot of ways to be able to moonlight, if I can say that term loosely, to have other money. But I don't think that's too far off, Jacob. I really don't. I think it's closer than most of us think. I really, really do. Now, in the case of Mike Ilitch, most loyal guy on the planet. Yeah. I had to buy a championship, and he did get to the World Series twice. You can't knock that either. It's just they couldn't get over the hump for whatever reason. We're not going to get into that. I want to keep the show rolling along at the pace that it's moving along. So, Jacob, to answer your question, I think it's a lot sooner than most people think.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It is a lot sooner. The only thing that I could foresee, not really being an obstacle, but more of a speed bump, is it's a lot easier, and of course, but I'll say it anyway. It's a lot easier to pull off in baseball than to say football because football has a salary cap, you know? So they may have to be a little bit more weary about paying somebody on the back end after they're gone because they're going to have to try to add players after that guy's gone. And if they got a salary cap going on, that's kind of hard to pull off. Right. But moving along here, we're going to move on to the incident of that happened here in Houston, Texas, actually. It's a high school basketball player and his brother that attacked the coach following the benching. So basically, the player was benched due to behavior towards an opposing team player. The coach received injuries to head, neck, face, and arms. This was following an attack in which the bench player's family was waiting for the coach upon return to the school after the game, and the player then punched the coach following a verbal confrontation. The brother also assaulted the coach as well. He assisted in it. They both were arrested and released on a $23,000 bond each. I didn't mention the names out of just because they're kids and everything. So I'll give it to Jacob and then get your thoughts about this, because this right here, this is horrible. And before you go, I had a conversation with my mom the other day, and this validates my point that I told her that these kids nowadays are more dangerous than the adults. It's crazy because it seemed like every other day or every other two days or every day or whatever, you hear about some kid either getting killed or harmed or whatever, or they're harming the adults, like in a school setting. They're taking advantage of these rules because they know that there's only so much that a teacher can do, because if the teacher lays hand on them, they can get fired. They're outsmarting them, and for that, I blame the system. I blame the system that's protecting these, I don't want to, I'll just say it, hellhounds, But, Jacob, take it away, man. What's your thoughts on this?
Let me tell you this. You've seen me before on social media, both Twitter, X, or whatever, or Facebook or whatever. How many times do I correct something where they keep saying the word, I'm a good person, instead of man or woman? Mm-hmm. There's a reason for this. There's a reason I'm doing this. It's because you are getting kids like this that don't know who they are. And you're getting everything, and guess what? They don't have the fathers in the house, but you want to know, you're making a society and a media, we brought this up with media again, that is making manhood into an insult. And so you can't say to them, I want to make this boy into a man. Well, you get this when you don't. Being a man is more than the idea of quote unquote fighting or whatever. That's not even that. That's fighting to protect your woman. your girlfriend, your wife. That's what you do. Protect your own. You don't do it otherwise. You need to be intelligent. But we are teaching them to insult the idea of man. So there's not men. They're boys. And they're boys at 42, at 50. Because we just saw 2 referees fight it out at a 4th grade game.
Yeah.
On video.
Referees.
Yes, they're boys. We don't have men because the media is making people afraid to say the word man. And then so you got boys at all ages. So yeah, there is a reason I'm on the social media saying the word man, woman. Know your identity. Be proud of your identity. Because we're getting all of this, and violence is coming from it because everybody's immature. So they can't take authority. They can't take the authority of you screwed up. You need to sit the bench. And so then you get these players right now. I'm sorry to say this. Bob Knight was 6'5". There was 99% of the players that weren't going to knock it, that weren't going to try to hit him. You know what I'm saying? He's 6'5", about 240. Yeah. Whatever we thought of him as a coach or whatever his attitude was, that's a big boy. That was a big boy, and there wasn't a lot of people who were going to try him.
Not John Thompson either. He was bigger.
He was 6'10".
Yeah.
And 300. They weren't going to try him, and these were kids from the streets that weren't trying him.
Exactly.
And these are the point. These were men. We're getting immature kids, and we need to get men helping bringing boys up to men and women bringing girls into women. Know your identity, get to this, and get the maturity back.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the most disturbing thing about this whole incident, speaking of men supposed to act like men and women supposed to act like women, is the family enabled it. The family confronted the coach afterwards. And it's not like they did anything to, quell it or anything like that. They helped confront the coach following the game. They waited for him to arrive back to the school and confronted him. So we got to point a finger at these enabling parents and family members as well. But I'm going to swing it over to George and get your thought about this situation. Pretty unfortunate for the coach. Thankfully, he's fine. Jacob, I appreciate everything that you just said, because here's my take on this before you go, George. Here's my take on this. And I know there's going to be some people at home that disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, okay? If you are a teenager and you are pulling adult stunts like this, you deserve 100% to get treated like one. You think prisons aren't filled with 17-year-olds that pulled adult-like crimes and got years behind them, or years ahead of them, should I say? You pull a stunt like this, you deserve to be held accountable in court like an adult. George, take it away.
Tough act to follow, obviously. Growing up, remember the saying, us olders will always remember it, respect your elders. Respect your elders. My parents probably drilled that into my head for year after year after year. God bless them. They're no longer on this earth. But here we go once again. You can't go to a ball game. You can't go to a basketball game. You don't know what's going to happen. Is the referee going to be attacked? Is one of the coaches going to be punched? And I don't want to use his name, but I have to. Is Draymond Green going to have a wild flying arm that sucker punches an NBA player? I'm talking about not only high school level, college, and pros. Juwan Howard, okay, what you did was wrong too. So this being said, what kind of situation are we creating, or in some cases have created, where it's not even safe to go to a game anymore? It's not even safe to, the old days used to yell, kill the umpire. Well, my gosh, now they really mean it, some of these people, with that saying, kill the umpire, just because you didn't like a certain call or you didn't like a play that didn't turn out well for your son or your daughter on the court. We have to get back to training these young people to respect their elders, to respect authority. You're not always going to like what the coach tells you or the trainer tells you or the official tells you or whoever, but you really need to respect your elders. And for this kind of behavior to continue on, in Montgomery County, Texas. It just irritates me to read these kind of incidents that are going on, and not only there, but other places around the country and around the world. We just have to be more peaceful. We have to create an atmosphere that is not full of chaos, is not full of hate, is not full of threats. Because we're welcoming you to come and watch the game, to come and watch practice, whatever it is. But what we need to do is get a reality check here and say, let's stop it right there. Let's not be violent about it. Let's not be abusive language. Whatever it is, it's got to stop.
Yes, absolutely, it has to stop. And you mentioned it's not safe to go to games anymore or anything like that. And apparently, from this incident, it's not safe to coach games anymore. You mess around and bench the wrong player, and now you got his whole family reunion waiting for you when you get back. But I want to round this out with Scott and get your thoughts about this, because I know this is unlike it. Maybe you've seen something like this before, but it's still terrible nonetheless.
Denzel, I'm going to tell you something, my friend. You come up with some of the best segues on the planet, man. You are a quick learner. Okay, so good stuff. Here, let's put it this way. A high school basketball coach, you wouldn't see it in football because you got a million assistants around there would clock the kid head anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But a high school basketball coach is now the most thankless job in the educational system because of this. Period. Bro, I don't want to get into anything. But let's go on to another point, though. You talk about prison 17-year-olds should be treated like adults. Well, ever heard of Oxford High School in Michigan, right? Ever heard of ethancrumbley? Guess what? He's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. And you know what? They decided to try him as an adult, not a juvenile. Good move. And I can tell you, this stuff continues to occur. What you just said, Denzel, could indeed become more of a trend that these kids have to be accountable, or young adults, whatever you want to call them. They have to be accountable. And if they don't figure it out while they're free, they'll figure it out when they lose their freedom. Ethancrumbley, the tragedy at Oxford High School. I don't have to repeat the whole thing. All I'm trying to do is emphasize 2 points. A high school basketball coach will be the most thankless job on the planet. And 2, these kids are going to be held. And yes, George, respect your elders and all that other stuff does apply. So I'm on board with everything you say. And once again, I'll say rest in peace to those children's lives that were taken, and good riddance, Ethancrumbley. You're going to spend a lot of time, and I don't think the prisoners are going to like you for what you did anyways. They're going to think you're a punk, and they're going to treat you like that.
Yeah. Well, Denzel, I have a thing to say. Denzel has a thing to say. You remember that photo they showed? Remember that photo they showed of that adult, he was an adult teacher at the school. He was that black teacher who brought ties for every kid.
Yes.
You ever see that? He brought ties for every kid, and it's like, this is our year. This was I didn't know if you guys have seen it or not, George, Scott. No. He is a black teacher. I think he was in Houston or somewhere like that, just whatever. He's a black teacher, and he is telling, the very first day, he got all the kids. He took them all out. It was like a 3rd, 4th grade or whatever. He took them all out to like a Goodwill or something like that to go buy. It was on him. Buy them all dress clothes, and he got them all ties, and then he got extra ties. So if the kids didn't have the ties or they lost them, that they would wear them that day. He did that, and so they had all year long of dressing up. They had to get in line. They had to learn discipline all year long. And why do we not hear more of this? This is the media we get. This is the final aspect on NBC, the final thing that no one seems to care about before the local news. It's like, oh, isn't that so nice? He's great. Anyway, let's see it. Local news. Bye. This isn't a thing. We're too much into the violence. We're too much into the blood. Meanwhile, there's a whole situation where something like that can help many black children. I love stories like this. They can, that they can be able, that they can get this out. You get kids like this, they can dream. They can dream of something bigger. Mm-hmm. They can dream of being a sports owner, like you were saying, Denzel, of CEO. They can dream of being a lawyer. They can dream of everything besides the top 3 that they've always known. And we don't get enough teachers of that, nor do we get enough promotion of it when it happens.
Right. Yeah. And you know, with the there might be some people at home that will say, well, you know, prison may not be the answer because he's just 17 and such. And I try not to feel. Now, I do agree. After having worked as a correctional officer, I do agree that for some people, prison does mess you up, you know. But I will also say this much. I don't feed into that narrative too much because people always want to say, well, you shouldn't throw them in prison until that crime is committed and it happens to their loved one. Then they want them locked up. So that's my challenge to the people, is to pick which side you want. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get on to our pundits' points. I'm going to turn it over to the Dean of South Florida Tribune University, Scott Morgan-Ross. Go ahead, take it away.
Thank you very much, Denzel Snipes. Well done. So, all right, I'll start off with my pundit's point and then go around the horn. Last night, okay, Jacob and I and jbellis talked about joedumars. So what I want to do is, instead of giving somebody a hard time what they did or they didn't do right, all I'm going to do is provide words of wisdom, okay? And that's it. Stephen A. Smith had joedumars on today's edition of, I believe it's First Take, and joedumars talked about Draymond Green's indefinite suspension. Now, the one thing I like to do is, before I go on the air, I'll watch a couple of shows if I think they're going to benefit the brand. And obviously come up with topic ideas and things if I think they could certainly be an asset to what we're doing. But you know, the biggest report card for a journalist, especially on the air like we are, is when another outlet of that sort talks about what we did the night before. It's called a report card. Okay, it's a really good report card in how you judge yourself. And I don't care about bragging. I don't need self-praise. It doesn't mean anything. But I have to tell you that I was really, really pleased that Get Up, Stephen A. Smith had joedumars on, because George and I know that joedumars was one of the classiest players out there. He played the game the right way. And when he spoke to an official, he did it very politely, and they listened to him. And joedumars obviously was on today. So I just want to give kudos to jbellis, Jacob Christner, and obviously they trusted my instincts to talk about joedumars on it, because in the end, we talk about at the top of the hour about good journalism. Well, again, I'm not saying we're good or bad. You just want to make sure you tell the truth and make sure that everything is cohesive is what we do. And this is how you're able, and when another organization that big within a matter of hours talks about what you did when you made the assessment on the night before, I say we're doing pretty good work. So kudos to jbellis, Jacob, for going along with my instincts on this. And I continue to find other ways to see if we can go ahead and at least compare ourselves to the competition in terms of what the philosophies are, in terms of how journalism news is reported and how you evaluate everything objectively. All right, George, give me your pundit's point.
Well, my pundit's point is going to be a tip of the cap to my colleague, Scott, because on several occasions, Scott, you have reminded me and our viewers that the Detroit Red Wings, being part of the original six, have a very, very strong viewership. So today I had to go with this. And here's what it says. With the Red Wings' improvements on the ice, their viewership on television has once again returned to prominence, as Detroit has become the most watched NHL team to start the season. And what this tells me is something like you said, Scott, maybe between you and I, it's been years ago, but months ago on this same format, that we have seen the importance of those original six teams. And no matter what the media says, okay, they might not be the best teams in the world. They might not be the winningest teams right now. I mean, Montreal struggling, Chicago struggling, Detroit struggling. Toronto hasn't won a cup in God knows how many decades. But what it tells us is that there are some things in life and in sports that continue. And these traditions, as we call them sometimes, or dynasties or past glory, whatever you want to call it, does give me some hope. And I say that because instead of going with the instant gratification and, oh, yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes had a great year this year, or, yeah, the LA Kings had a great couple of years, okay, but it does at least tell me that when it comes to sports on television, there are some things that are more important than even what some of the critics can say. And again, we have our rivalries in sports, we always will. But the fact of the matter is just by showing this kind of improvement, and what Steve Yzerman is trying to do in Detroit is obviously bring this franchise back from, let's call it the doldrums the last 6-7 years, and return it to its once prominence and glory days. But the fact of the matter is that not only that, but this is what the people want too. This is what the hockey fans are looking for and starving for, is to see some of those returns on these teams. Again, Detroit being one of the original 6. That's my point today.
Okay, I want to turn it over to Jacob. I'm sure he has a lot on his mind, so go at it, Jacob.
One of the things that fantasy football has ruined is the term game manager. You want to know who a game manager is in the football? All 32 quarterbacks. They're game managers. Understand this, but this is the problem, because they might not look flashy enough. Because of this, you've got some winning. You'll get some quarterbacks that start to win. Truth, I'll give you one right now, Trevor Lawrence, who's won some games this year. I bet he's had a few 150-yard games, but he looks bad, so we got to get rid of him. This is the problem with people, and why all 32 teams, the front offices, need to understand: never listen to a fan. Because never, ever listen to a fan. It's because you get the situation like Justin Fields is in right now. He's starting to finally figure the thing out, and it might be too late. It's because you moved him too soon. You put him around too soon. And you did this type of thing. You did not have the thing whatsoever. You didn't have the patience to let him sit. Same with Trubisky when he was there. You could have just let that thing. You used to let him sit a couple of years. Aaron Rodgers sat a couple of years. We have such a fear now because of everything ESPN says. But you want to know who wasn't afraid of those people on ESPN and all those fans? Shohei Ohtani. And he got his bag. And it's like he didn't let the media in. Somebody had to guess. The fans were guessing, all that stuff. And everybody wants to know everything. He got his. So we need to get this understanding right now. A game manager is a good game manager. It's the winner, no matter how flashy they are or not. And again, quit listening to fans.
You know, before I go to you, Denzel, you make a great point, Jacob. So I want to ask the panel this question. Cam Newton was trying to talk about game managers, okay? And the thing that really annoyed me about what Cam Newton said about game managers is you can single out quarterbacks, game managers, and non-game managers. But here's the deal, Cam, okay? First of all, they're employed. You are not, period. If you were good enough, don't you think you would be in this league? Really? Mm-hmm. So I think that if there's anyone who should just say, I'm sure we've all heard these things, just shut up, right? How many times we heard that on TV? Just shut up. Well, Cam Newton, just shut up, okay? You're not employed, and there's a reason why your last act in Carolina as well as New England weren't very good. People don't want you anymore. So you want to go out there and walk around with your fancy clothing and all this stuff that I would actually put in the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus with the way this guy dresses. Get real, okay, Cam? You're not good enough. So the NBA will run its business and nobody cares. So Cam Newton, just shut up. Okay, Denzel. Good point, though, Jacob. You know, you always have a tendency to get my goat going and crank it up, and you did right there. You set up beautifully, Christner. All right, go ahead, Denzel.
That's like a every other day convo for me and Jacob. Is like I kind of call him in the morning. And it's like, you know, hey, man, you still hating fans? Yep, still hating fans. All right, cool. And then we finally talk about it.
Fan sucks.
But no, my pundit point goes out to the University of Colorado. They actually named a course after Coach Prime. Get this. So the name of the course is CMC 14021 or CMCI 4021. Primetime Public Performance and Leadership. This course will teach college athletes to show, let's see here, athletes, how to manage time preparing for their career, how to manage their celebrity, advocate for worthy causes, and much more. And it comes at a time during NIL. It is safe to say that you've pretty much made it amongst the culture when they name a damn course after you. And this also goes on off the heels of the one time when Coach Prime brought Brittany Renner in to talk to the athletes, and she talks about, the type of like women that go after athletes and things like that. Y'all have to find the YouTube clip and everything. But he's always talking to his players about how to manage themselves off the field, because that's, to a lot of people, the most important time is off the field, because yes, you're getting paid money. This here is a game, but at one point in time, your playing day is going to end. And what are you going to do with it? You're going to manage your business. You're going to go coach, do something positive for the next generation that comes after you and the generation after that, But for right now, he's teaching these guys not only how to be men on the field, but also men off the field. Respectable men that conduct themselves off the field. So shout out to Coach Prime for this one. Shout out to the University of Colorado. Having an actual course named after you, you made it. All right, Scotty, you got it.
All right, well done, Denzel. I'm going to bring Candy Ebling on for about 30 seconds to a minute. She's going to preview what's going to be coming on after our show. Fire up, Candy. There you go. Let's give our viewers and everybody what you and George, Jeremy, and Ralph Williams have in store for our viewers. All right.
Well, after this show wraps up, stay on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel so we can talk about. We're going to talk about Shohei a little bit. We're going to talk about Bill Belichick, Ben Roethlisberger, and Lionel Messi. Stay tuned.
So there's your host, Candy Ebling. She'll take us home later on. But meanwhile, well done, guys. I want to let everybody know how they can get a hold of us. Before you do that, I'll say this one last time because probably the longest of it anyways. Just so you know, Pundit's Pundit being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit's Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube. South Florida Tribune, we're striving for more subscribers. Want to be a guest? No problem. Just participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes, unless we need her in front of the scenes. And my book is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Mainly talks about old school media versus new school media. And throughout the time on Pundit's Pundit, we generally dive into those concepts as well. Can be purchased on Amazon and Kindle. All right, we'll go around the horn one more time. George, go ahead.
All right. Well, you can reach me at the Motor City Tribune. So I write for the South Florida Tribune. The Motor City Tribune is underneath that. And there's a link to a book I wrote, which is a few years old right now, but the history of Detroit sports broadcasting and Michigan sports broadcasting as well. That book's available from Amazon. And I congratulate Scott, of course, with his new book out. A great read, obviously. And you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on Twitter at SanGSports99 and see me here on Pundit's Pundits and any shows that Scott and Candy and Scott need me on. I'll be looking forward to the doubleheader today and being on the next show as well. Fire Up series. So good to be on with all of you tonight.
Glad to have you on, George. Obviously, we all enjoy having you on. I know Jacob gleams about you, Denzel. Well, he thinks the world of you. And, of course, I think of you after 40-plus years, so it is what it is. But that said, I'll segue over to Jacob Christopher. Go ahead. I don't know if I should give you the Cliff Notes version or whatever one.
We got it good here. So the South Florida Tribune Sideline Sports, movies, TV, interviews. The pen is mightier than the sword. Everywhere you see, you're a what for more. Right there, 6 days a week.
You know, I will say this before I turn it over to Denzel Snipes. Jacob, I've dealt with a lot of people before, but you are one of the most coachable individuals I've ever seen. More power to you. And for that matter, you get to see this guy on Sunday when the professor and the pupil returns with myself, Jacob, Denzel, and Jeremy Ballrick. All right, go ahead, Denz.
All right. First and foremost, NGBN TV. We are on there. We are live. So tune in to NGBN TV and catch all of our material on there. Also, Sideline Sports Network here on Thursdays. We got the Gauntlet Loaded Show tomorrow night. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, Top Rope Talk, myself, and the pundit himself. That's Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also, of course, Wednesdays, there's the Gauntlet Percents picked off our NFL Weekly Picks. We had a loaded show just this past Wednesday. So tune in for that. That is going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays.
All right, and also I'm glad you brought up our newest partner. I'm looking forward to working with Ian Hill. My interactions with Ian have been nothing short of outstanding, and I'm looking forward to more conversations with him and jbellis as we all try to put our heads together to make this a very successful win-win situation. So, Ian, if you're watching, we definitely appreciate you very much, jbellis, and the rest of our incredible crew here. Obviously, Jacob, Denzel, George. The list goes on and on. So, with that said, that concludes this edition of Pundit's Pundit. On behalf of George Eichhorn, Denzel Snipes, and Jacob Christner, and Candy Ebling behind the scenes, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Man-Mouth. Thank you for joining us. Now, programming note that Pundit's Pundit will be on next Wednesday as we have other commitments on Thursday night. So tune into us same time, but on Wednesday night, and you can find us again. So take care, everybody, and we will see you next week. Good night, everybody.